Hello and welcome back. Before we get to part 2, Real Talk, please allow us to fulfill our capitalistic duty and plug our Patreon, the Contrarian Supplements.
That's right. For a small fee, you too can help the Contrarians rage on.
We have tiers ranging from just $1 to $10. It all depends on how much content you can handle.
Starting at $1, it's a Travoltis tier, which gets you access to new bonus episodes focusing on a new movie every month, as well as access to the patron chat. Join other patrons in making fun of our opinions.
Moving up to $3 is the Winonis tier, which unlocks access to our pre-recording notes, our video reviews, and our spin-off show, Contrarians After Hours.
That's a more laid-back space where we talk about other things we've been watching, reading, playing, thinking about. Sometimes it's related to the movies being covered in the main feed, but it usually isn't.
If you want to be part of those patrons who help us shape the show by telling us which movies to tackle, that's when you sign up for the $5 tier, the Embries, and the $10, the Gads.
Finally, all supplement subscribers, regardless of the tier, get access to our archive of special patron projects. Head over to patreon.com/contrarianprime now to join.
Be sure to listen through the end of the episode to find out what's coming up to the Contrarian Supplements this month. Now, it's time for some Real Talk.
Oh, shit, man. Charlie, where the fuck you been at, man? Don't you know we've been looking all over this motherfucker for you? And why the hell you dressed like me anyway? I ain't paying you to be Michael Myers. I'm playing Michael Myers. If them kids come around and see us dressed up in the same shit, you're gonna ruin the whole effect. Ah, damn it. What the hell is wrong with you? I said, what you looking at me like that for? Huh? You don't get it? You don't get it? Your shit ain't working up there or something? You need to take your ass in the back of the garage with Nora. That's your job. Go back there with Nora and help her ass out. Go do your job. I left the back door unlocked for your ass to go out the back into the garage. That's what I did. You need to get the hell out of here. Go ahead, scoot, skedaddle. Get the fuck out of Dodge.
Julio, Dangertainment is live and on the air. And, you know, we talked about this a little bit, obviously facetiously in the first half. There is a little bit of, there's a germ of thought in this movie that if we were being polite, we could almost argue was ahead of its time in a way that part of the novelty is like this whole webcast, internet ideology, which now there are literally people that just carry around fucking cameras with them so they're on the internet 24 hours a day, to the point where people lose sight of who their real self is, and, you know, people watching at home don't know what's fact and what's fiction. That is if we were being polite. I could also just argue that.
But Alex, not to get into it already, but wouldn't you say that most of those streams that you see today, and maybe we are old-fashioned, maybe I am old-fashioned, but wouldn't you say that most of the streams today are not as interesting as the stream that shows up on Halloween Resurrection?
Well, yes, but there's also a bit of legality surrounding it, you know, murder and shit that I think complicates the, well, those streams, you know, when people do inadvertently die on something, those are the ones that you hear the most about. So, yeah, doesn't make it a good movie, and there's so many other problems with it. But it is an interesting tilt that this movie is made with. It does not work in any way, shape, or form being a Halloween movie. I already called this out. If this had been a Friday the 13th, a Nightmare on Elm Street, shit, man, you could do a Child's Play like this. But there was nothing in the, what would it have been, 30-year history previous to this movie that was anything like this, that would remotely set the ground for something like this. And there's been certainly nothing in the 23 years since.
But there's always a first. I mean, you know, there's always nothing like it until it happens.
Stop
and then,
it.
And then you can move forward. I mean, otherwise, what you have is just a very rigid, and maybe that's it. I mean, are you telling me that the concept of Halloween is so rigid that it cannot evolve? I mean, maybe this was a step too far, maybe too far too soon. But wouldn't you, I guess, tell me what is the Halloween movie.
Trust me, they tried to make it evolve. Like, we had the Thorn trilogy.
Right.
We had Season of the Witch, which obviously has really nothing to do with Michael. And then the modern trilogy certainly took some chances. The Rob Zombie ones took some chances. I'm speaking more in the idea of we saw Julius box Jason. We've been in the ridiculous. Think of all the shit we've Freddy. He turns into a giant worm and then jumps down that Jason Mewes knockoff's throat in Freddy vs. Jason. Here, Busta Rhymes is nailing spinning wheel kicks and flying crescent kicks to Michael Myers and talking shit to him while he does it. The way he perishes in this is he gets shocked in the fucking dick and balls and then gets electrocuted to death. Or so we would think. But anyway.
So it's the humor. That's what you're saying.
Yeah. It's just
right?
It's the levity at which it's treated because, I'm never going to fault, or I couldn't with a straight face say the franchise never took chances outside of the first one because even the second one introduces the whole idea that they're brother and sister and shit. It's just, it's too light in its tone. And fortunately, we would bring that down to size with the next installment in the franchise, which was Rob Zombie's first one. The Weinsteins were like, all right, we made it too much fun. Now we got to make it real grim. And, Rob Zombie just cracks his knuckles and puts his glasses on, his spec script glasses, and leave it to me.
Licks his lips. The pendulum does swingeth.
But for today's installment in the franchise, Halloween Resurrection, it would have been the first time in the lineup up until that point that a director returned as Rick Rosenthal showed up to direct whatever this is, standing at 10% on Rotten Tomatoes. Continue on my tradition, my love of a movie titled Halloween that comes out in the summer. This one was released on July 12th of 2002. Budget of $15 million, grossing 37.6. So it was technically a success, but it well underperformed, historically for the franchise. So 10% though, Julio. I can't tell where you're coming from right now, so some of these critics may be in line with you. What positive reviews were you able to pull for this?
All right. A nice collection of fresh tomatoes from the Rotten Tomatoes website. We're going to start with Beth Jones from the Roanoke Times, Virginia, who says, Halloween Resurrection isn't exactly quality cinema, but it isn't nearly as terrible as it could have been. Could this have been worse, Alex, in your eyes? Or is this just as bad as you can do with this concept, with this tone?
I think I said this in Contrarian's Corner, but if I didn't, I'm going to say it now. I'm watching this again before I watch Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 again. That's now, granted, I don't know if that's quality versus just how much of a fucking beating that movie is, visually and tonally.
Academy Award nominee / winner, maybe Octavia Spencer would disagree, would take offense.
Who had to audition for that role? It's one of the special features on the DVD I have of it. It's astounding. I mean, I can't sit here and tell you how much I enjoy Child's Play 3 and not acknowledge that it is almost as stupid as this movie is. So, it's just difference being I've never been married to Chucky the way I am to Michael Myers, and watching this, it hurts my feelings.
All right. Well, on the same wavelength, Corey Coleman from Double Toasted says, like one of those offshoot Godzilla movies. I had so many laughs with this. I can have fun with this. It's dumb, but I can watch this again. So maybe you just need to get into that mindset, Alex. Can you just watch this as a comedy and enjoy it?
Yeah, if we were hanging out, you and I, and threw this on, I'm sure we could find plenty to laugh at it. This is not a movie that I swear off. This is not a great example is Attack of the Clones. I don't view this in the same sector of film as I do that. That movie makes me mad and I refuse to watch it. I don't have it in my Star Wars collection,
Yeah.
And this I do, and I could watch and laugh at, but the point is, Ben, in this particular case, asked us to say how we feel about this movie, so that's what I'm doing.
To be critical. Let's take this seriously. Well, Now we go on to Felix Vasquez Jr. from Cinema Craze, who says, it's a ridiculous, absurd slasher film with a concept that is so bad that it's undoubtedly good and makes for some wicked entertainment.
Dangertainment.
So bad that it's good. I don't think this has that reputation, though, right? Like, you know better, Alex. You know where they stand. Like, the so bad it's good. This is not part of that clique, right?
I don't know. I do know, like, the Freddy character in this is somewhat celebrated in the circles of, those that can quote The Ring from start to finish and whatnot. And there are people who, because it's not the last one and it was for so long, I think that the hate on this movie's eased up and people just accept it as like the big
swing.
The big swing and a miss, yeah. Because I do know a lot of like Busta Rhymes' lines will get quoted at like, horror conventions or what have you.
Trick or treat, motherfucker.
But those are the quotes. Let's get into it, Alex. Let's start with the big question, the one that, or maybe like the most basic question. Is this the worst? We've seen them all. And I just want to talk to the Halloween fan that's on the other side of the call with me. Is this the bottom of the barrel when it comes to the Halloween franchise?
Yes, for me, this is the worst one, but it's that backwards mentality I have about some things. It's the worst one, but I'll watch it again before I watch Zombies 2. And 5 is so bad, but as I've already called out, repeatedly in the history of our podcast, I have such a soft spot for it because it was, 1, 4, and 5 are what I grew up on. But it's as far as like nonsensical and 5's better than this, but it's this is the worst. And it's also, we'll go ahead and get into this now. It was a script that wasn't written to be a Halloween movie. I think Mustafa Akkad just got a hold of it and shoehorned in Michael Myers. He's like, all right, here we go.
It's Die Hard all over again.
Yes. Larry Brand, the fella who gets the story by credit and screenplay, he gets it alongside Sean Hood. Larry Brand had been working on this movie that was inspired by War of the Worlds, and this is what it ended up being. But he he had this idea of using like where the internet was going and the idea of like the live stream and the webcast and also the internet's ability to manipulate perception and reality and use it almost like in a sci-fi or horror tone of these people watching a webcast like this. And this is all off the top of my head. This is you can attribute this to Taking Shape and a few other things that I've read over time. But that was like the general idea. And these people watching from home and being scared because they couldn't decipher what was real and what wasn't. And then that kind of got passed around. This is when Mustafa Akkad, this is before he passed, he got a hold of this and he's like, excellent. Just figure out a way to put Michael Myers into it. And, the idea behind that being Michael Myers and the age of the web. So much so that at one point, the working title of the movie was michaelmyers.com. So there you go.
Such a downgrade to Halloween Resurrection.
Yeah, and the resurrection thing's annoying too because he never died. So he wasn't coming back from the dead. But I guess he's going back home. Should have called it Homecoming.
And then you could do Halloween No Way Home, Halloween Far From Home.
Walked right into that one, man. Yeah, Michael's on vacation and I don't want to kill.
He leaves the mask at home, but Laurie packs it for him.
Yeah, this would have been the last Mustafa Akkad. And he really, and as we covered in painstaking detail in our Haddonfield Nights series, Mustafa Akkad got to a point where he really had no interest in doing anything other than bleeding, squeezing the nickel that was the Halloween franchise until the buffalo on it was just depleted of all life. That was all he was interested in doing. And sadly, I talk shit about him, but he was murdered several years after this, and he and his daughter. You remember that they were killed in a terrorist bombing?
It's coming back to me now. I mean, that was part of the not so fun history of Halloween.
Yeah. So in some ways, it's kind of it's fitting that this was his last one because it was the most preposterous, but it was still just from the idea of, God damn it, there's still money to be made here. So when you hear all that, you're like, oh, All of that sounds way more interesting than this really dumb Halloween movie we got in the end. And there's a lot of other problems with this that I'm sure we're going to get to either here or on our YouTube warm up for this. But yes, it is the worst one because even if we want to split hairs, or I guess almost atoms in this case, and get down to like acting, 2, 3, 4, 5, even 6 with Paul Stephen Rudd, especially like 7, because LL Cool J is really good in that, and Michelle Williams and shit. The cast in this is just reprehensible, man.
I mean, yes, but I wouldn't put them all on the same level. I think that there's some variety as far as the performances, like the levels of performance, right? I think that you can tell that some of these actors have been in other movies. Some of them, maybe this is just their first big production. Mm-hmm. Like the kid from American Pie. I mean, he's not doing Shakespeare here, but he looks like he knows where the camera is. And
which one?
I guess before we get into the cast, though, because I'm still trying to figure out like how, because you have this nostalgic attachment to 5.
So, okay, I guess that should be the question for you, because I have all these, like, I guess, and you could say hang-ups, but if I wanted to be more positive about it, these quirks that I appreciate about some of the entries throughout, with one that I just flat out do not care for at all. And this one, the whole point is like going back to the beginning of this conversation. I don't like this is what it is. It's funny. It's probably because it came out around the same time that I pair them. But this is like Jason X. It's like, why not? All things were really weird after the Matrix for a while there. So, yeah, I guess find a property and wrap it in technology. That's what you're going to do in the early 2000s. So this isn't a movie I spend a lot of time thinking about or disliking. And because I do laugh at like Busta Rhymes' dialogue and just some of the dumb bullshit in this that makes no sense at all. So I really should be asking you, is this the bottom of the barrel?
I don't know. I think that there's so many ways of judging the franchise at this point, or to judge like an entry in the franchise. Because I would say, I get the nostalgia. I don't even have like the attachment that you do. But when I think of 5, I think of it as a really bad movie, but then I also think of the iconic ridiculousness of it. And maybe part of it is just that, you still have Loomis in it. And part of it might be big. That it has, for better or for worse, it connects to both 4 and 6. And so it has like more importance. I feel like this is the middle chapter, or it could have been the middle chapter of a trilogy that we never finished, right? It has, it connects to H2O, and it could have connected to something else. And if it was able to finish its own preposterous story the way that 4, 5, and 6 did, then maybe it would have like a little bit more standing in the entire franchise, because it wouldn't just be like the one where everything stopped, right? It went in a really weird direction, then it ended. And instead it would be like the middle chapter, the really weird middle chapter into like whatever would have been a follow-up to Resurrection. So I was trying to figure out, like, is that a disadvantage? Is that something that maybe on that subconscious level for the people that don't enjoy Resurrection, right? Like, is that something that is at play? Because you watch it and you're like, it's not even that it's not good, but it's also that it's inconsequential. Like 5 is not inconsequential. 5 is really bad, but it takes you to 6. Even if it's just there's elements that, move over, like Jamie and the Thorn, Loomis, there's still a continuity, and I think that somehow enhances that movie that's really bad. This one is just like a dead end. Whatever comes from H2O kind of like gets cut off after the first 10 minutes of the movie, and then it's just on its own. And then also the fact that there might be people that this is the one that hit them at the right time, and so the nostalgic attachment somehow. Can you imagine like being the person that's nostalgic for this movie? Like, I don't know about Loomis, but I like Busta Rhymes.
Oh, Freddie boy. Damn, you good. Shit you come up with off the top of your head, boy.
There's got to be someone who, was 15 or something and on a Saturday night, got to go see this. You know, it was the first R-rated movie they saw in the theater or something like that. You know, there's people, I would believe that wholeheartedly, that there's people nostalgic for this. I was worried for a second, though, that you were going to go fucking full dickhead and say that it's better than Kills and Ends. So I'm glad you didn't do that.
Well, as patrons and actually regular listeners too, because we ended up putting this on the main feed, those conversations. My reaction to those two movies was so much stronger than how I feel about Resurrection. You know, I had more skin in the game. I liked 2018 fairly well. It's like I think when the rankings were done, that was like my second favorite, and so the letdown hurt a lot more. Just because I felt that they just didn't do what I wanted them to do. With Resurrection, I mean, and part of it is just I went in with zero expectations. I knew that this was one of the most reviled, most mocked entries in the franchise. So I was like, let's see what happens. And it was pretty much exactly what I expected.
Really, at its core, it's just a bad slasher movie. That's all it is.
Yes, I would say it's a generic slasher. Okay, when you think slasher, Alex, do you generally think like... Because, you know, you can say there are good slashers, and then there's slashers, and then there's bad slashers. So when you're thinking slasher, just like base level, would you say it's better than this? Or is this kind of like the average slasher? It's a shame that it has the Halloween name.
Somewhere in the middle there, where I'd say it's pretty standard fare, probably below average. You know, it's not too far off from Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation, in the sense of, this is really stupid. Why did we make this? But, you know, I go back and rewatch that movie. I can quote along to half the shit that fucking Matthew McConaughey says in that movie. Though that's actually, now that I'm thinking about it out loud, a fair comparison, because they're both part of like beloved franchises. They're both just really bad movies. But if what you're there for is cheesy one-liners and some killing, then you're going to get that.
Not to derail us, but that was kind of my take, my position when we were talking about the Friday 13th 2009 remake. Right, it was coming from me not having a connection to the franchise, and me saying, well, it's just a slasher, right? Like, it's just like it hits the marks. There's a bunch of dumb characters, and then they get killed, and then they seem to win, like the survivors kind of win, and then there's a big scare at the end showing that the tables have turned. And, you know, you get attractive people, you show some nudity, and there's some corny one-liners. I mean, that's just kind of like what comes with the territory. And I think that Halloween Resurrection kind of like ticks all those boxes. So I think it would be, I guess that's what we should get into. Like, what is it? Is it not really ticking the boxes, Alex? You enjoy slashers more than I do, right? So in theory, do you think that if this didn't have the Halloween attachment, if this was, I'm not going to say this was the project that they originally set out to do, because this has nothing to do with War of the Worlds or whatever that guy was trying to do. But if this was just called, like, I don't know, dangertainment.com, would you be able to enjoy it more, you think?
Yeah, definitely. And it would have a much better shot at being like one of those movies that's so bad it's good. Because now the way this stands is, if you get people that know ball talking about it, they'll probably be like, yeah, it sucks. Or it's just not a movie that anyone feels strongly about that I've found in my life. You never really come across someone that wants you to know they stand up for Resurrection. And it's also not one of those movies. It's not Rise of Skywalker, where I've ever spent an hour with somebody talking about how big of a disappointment it was. So you remove the Halloween, branding from it. Yeah, you keep fucking Busta Rhymes in here, and it's just, the killer, some local legend named, Jethro or some shit. Yeah, it'd have a really good shot at being like one of those, quote along midnight variety hour movies or some shit. So, but
it's still not a great slasher, right? So no. You were talking about the performances before. You were not impressed with the cast. Not even Busta Rhymes, or are you taking Busta Rhymes out of the equation?
Let's finish on Busta, because there's a few things to talk about.
Okay.
So no. The lead girl is so inconsequential and so forgettable. Sean Patrick Thomas, talked about this a little bit when we were going over to acting credits. I really like Barbershop, and I think he's good in that too. He's funny and Can't Hardly Wait. He's let me just say, he's a guy I've seen it enough to know that he knows what he's doing. And so his special appearance here wasn't necessarily on him. The kid from American Pie has like 5 lines and isn't, in my opinion, there to do much besides make you go, oh, the kid from American Pie. And then the blonde, I mean, she has the most memorable look of anyone in the cast because she looks very of the time. But yeah, none of these people really speak to me, and not Tyra Banks either.
Really? I mean, she doesn't get like 5 minutes maybe of screen time, but it's, she makes a smoothie, she dances.
The end.
Said, yeah. I don't think we can pass judgment on Tyra Banks.
While we're here with the cast, one of the things I found that we've done another movie with had something like this, and it's like so grimy. And the Katie Sackhoff, who is the blonde that from something else, correct?
Yeah. She's Battlestar Galactica 24.
That part where American Pie is trying to get her to lift her top. The director wanted her to lift her shirt to reveal her bra, but she refused. So they brought in a body double to do it, but Sackhoff had no idea until she went to the premiere with her parents.
Oh, so her parents thought that was those were her
when the movie cut to a close up of the character flashing her bra, Sackhoff's parents both looked at her in shock, thinking it was her. To make matters worse, according to Sackhoff in an interview, the double had much smaller breasts, and she was worried that people might think she had small breasts. So that has happened in movies since the beginning of, the moving picture, the idea of something being replaced without an actor's knowledge, but stuff like that, man. Come on. Even if you have the ability to do it and you do it, at least fucking smarten them up to it, man.
It's a staple of the horror genre. The boobs.
Come on, Jen. One flash and you could light up 1,000 computer screens. Launch your whole career.
Getting back to it, though, I think that the cast does, I guess, what they can with what they're given, right? Like, do you think? Because I don't think that anybody's like bad. I just think that there's nothing interesting for them to do. They're just kind of wandering around the house. And we kind of talked about it in Contreras Corner. It's such a bad idea for a reality show, even after they revealed that Busta Rhymes and Tyra Banks were kind of planning to orchestrate things to get interesting. But overall, it's just like one of the characters says, like, well, we could just sit down here and spend the night and that's it. We don't have to do anything. The goal is so fuzzy that I don't think it works.
It's so meandering. Yeah. It's just like there's at no point in this movie, even while these kids are getting picked off one by one, there's no sense of urgency because there's no sense of a goal,
100%. That is something that maybe, I don't know. I mean, 2002, I think that we had enough reality TV to kind of, for them to have picked up on that, right? That's the thing about reality TV. It's not just, it might have started with, let's just put cameras on these people. But I think that we grew out of that pretty quickly. And then we realized, oh no, for reality TV to really work, we have to give them constant challenges and goals and have to create competition and so on, right? So
they have to carry their coaches in a recliner across the water.
Yes. Imagine like they say, okay, we're going to put you in Michael Myers' house and your goal is to find these 3 things. You have to find the mask, I was going to say the machete. No, that's Jason. But, 3 iconic things from Michael Myers.
Knife. And the butcher knife is what you're thinking of.
Yeah, the butcher knife and then, I don't know, a picture of Dr. Loomis. You have to find these 3 things and now you have something that they're doing, while Michael actually starts scaling them. So I don't know why they didn't think of that. Like I said, they even have a character pointing out that they don't really need to do anything. So I think that is a problem. And because that's a problem, I think that translates into the actors, the cast not having anything to do but just kind of like wander around until Michael kills them. So I don't know if it's a bad cast. It's just that it's more like a bad script. I would like to think that there's, these people could have worked better if they were doing something that was more entertaining.
one of the big problems we're running into here with this discussion of the cast is when Busta Rhymes was signed on to do this movie, he got like full ownership of the Freddy character. He had like creative control. I made that Hulk Hogan joke about Section 11, subparagraph E, where he could even do shit like improvise lines during like live shooting, and they had to stay in the movie. Like he had that much, what do they say, autonomy over his character. So from that, you get things like "Happy fucking Halloween, Mikey," and that's why he is like a kung fu expert and shit. Because, you know, feel how you feel about this movie. If you watch this, Julio, I think you'd agree, boy, that Busta Rhymes character is really strong compared to everyone else in this movie.
He pops.
He does. And something that needs to be established there is, at least from my vantage point, the funniest part about all that is he's not bad. He's not like, you know, Tommy Wiseau or something that you're like cringing and turning away from the screen. You're more just like, what the fuck is this? But the actual delivery of the lines, and he, you know, he's got that good smile and everything. And so when he's on screen, you're like, sure, why not? But what is this?
Right. So I think that probably what would be accurate would be to say that he's a good performer, but he's a terrible writer, right? He needs somebody to tell him what to do. Which takes us to my next talking point, which is what happened to Rick Rosenthal, right? He did Halloween 2, which, I mean, I think that you rank it fairly high, right? Don't you have it at least the middle?
It's in the middle or upper half, yeah.
Right.
It's above H2O, I'll tell you that much.
H2O, my number one? Okay. Do you have trouble reconciling that the same man directed Resurrection?
I wouldn't say trouble reconciling it because, you know, 2 took some risks in its own right of, hey, they're brother and sister now. I can honestly see, you know, this guy being approached with this because between the two, he made what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 movies. I could see convincing yourself, or not convincing yourself, but like thinking off of how well H2O did, because that one up until that point was the highest grossing outside of the original. Be like, fuck yeah, man, this is my ticket back to the top. I'm going to be, was it Sean Penn in that movie he did that followed Halloween 2? Bad Boys. I'm going to be working with Sean Penn again in no time. And it is what it is. I mean, we've done enough, not just Halloween movies, but especially Miramax. We've done enough Weinstein-produced movies to know of how meddling they were in some projects, especially horror ones. I can believe, you know, Rosenthal here may have had his mind or heart in the right place in terms of, you know, thinking he could offer a familiar but unique perspective, and that this movie, you know, professionally would have been an escalator back up to the top floor. It just obviously did not turn out that way, because this movie, it literally feels while you're watching it like in real time they haven't finished the script for the next scene in the movie. That's how this whole thing feels.
Yeah. I don't remember enough about Halloween 2 to say that I came away from it thinking, oh, that was strong direction, right? Like John Carpenter's, like the first one, you come out of it and you're like, oh, okay, that guy, right? He had a vision, and it's like, oh, I'm not the biggest Carpenter fan, but there's no surprise that he went on to make more movies and become like an acclaimed filmmaker. And so Halloween 2 just, I mean, obviously suffers from being compared to the movie that immediately preceded it, but I think I walked away from it feeling a lot more positive about the direction, or at least not feeling negative about it. And after watching Resurrection, I guess it does surprise me that the person behind the camera was somebody that had so many years of experience and had worked in horror before and all that stuff, because it feels like the direction is it's just kind of there. It feels like an odd fit. Maybe he had trouble wrapping his mind around the idea of, okay, what do we do with these cameras, with this reality TV angle? Yes, you're right. There is the Peeping Tom homage, and there's the sequence where that girl gets killed with an audience that we called out. But overall, it feels like visually this could have been exploited so much better. And that would have been something that, would make the movie memorable.
Should have got the Wachowskis.
I mean, that is like on the other end of the spectrum, but yeah. Whatever the horror version of the Wachowskis is.
Low angles, scary. High angles, scary. Medium angles, boring.
I bet you learned that shooting all those weddings and bar mitzvahs.
Can you think, not going any further than the movie that follows it, like Rob Zombie did 2 movies that are very Rob Zombie-like, and that feels like a guy that grabbed the material and was like just squeezed everything he could out of it to make a movie that reflected his thoughts.
Ronnie Yu directed Freddy vs. Jason, which of course came the next year. And that was really controversial at the time when they cast him as the director, because he had specialized in some like martial arts films. Like he had worked with Jet Li, if I'm not mistaken. And as far as horror goes, up until that point, he directed Bride of Chucky. Have you ever seen Bride of Chucky?
I've only seen the first Chucky.
Okay. Well, it's called Child's Play, not the first Chucky, Julio. But anyway, because we talked about it, because Marty from Grease is the first victim of Chucky in that movie. That we got quite a laugh out of that.
Yep.
If you ever get around to it and you see Child's Play 1, 2, 3, and then you watch Bride of Chucky, the feel is completely different. This Ronnie Yu guy gives things a much more kind of chaotic feel with a little bit of sleek tinge to it. Freddy vs. Jason story-wise is not what I would call an artistic success, but visually and from a directing standpoint, I think it's got a lot of strength. So I'm thinking about that, like a guy like that plugged in at this time that maybe could have taken what was given with this premise and at least made something fascinating out of it. Yeah. Rennie Harlan's always in the background too, so I'm curious if he was doing anything in 01, 02 that he couldn't have hopped on this.
Do you think Rennie Harlan would have had more luck wrangling Busta Rhymes? Because I guess that's how I got to Rick Hostel, because I was thinking, God, that sounds like a nightmare if you're a director and you just basically, you can't direct your movie because fucking Busta Rhymes had an idea. And now it's like, oh, well, now we have to do this. And now the tone is this. And now there's a quip. It just seems, I'm not even going to say that you need a stronger hand, because if it was in his contract, I guess you were like out of luck no matter what. Yeah. That sucks.
I know, he directed Nightmare on Elm Street 4. That was like his first big break, Rennie Harlan, that was. And there's a lot of stories about him clashing heads with the producers and the production company and different points of the movie. So if nothing else, we probably would have gotten some pretty cool stories about him and Busta Rhymes going toe to toe.
There you go. He goes like, "You want me to bring my wife here? Beat your ass?"
So Halloween Resurrection, talked about, it's disappointing, although in the black, but still disappointing box office return. Julio, summer of 2002. Tell me what's reigning supreme at the box office.
Was that Spider-Man? Or was that 2001?
Julio, Spider-Man was 2002, but it had already been out for 2 months and made some sweet money on that holiday break. At the time of release of Halloween Resurrection, Men in Black 2 was number 1 at the box office.
That's a shame. That movie sucks.
The U.S. release was moderate reception is the way to describe it, which the international release didn't really boost that. The film finished 4th in its opening weekend behind Reign of Fire and Road to Perdition. And then, as I mentioned, Men in Black. Reign of Fire, that was the same weekend as this, which I've never seen, but that's Matthew McConaughey chasing dragons, right?
Yes, and Christian Bale.
Love it. Road to Perdition.
Sounds better than it actually is.
Road to Perdition, I mean, it's Tom Hanks. You just put that in the marquee, people will show up. Number 5 that weekend, Julio, after spending 2 weeks in theaters, is a movie we've previously covered here on The Contrarians. It was chronicled during the summer of Winona, and that was Mr. Deeds.
Hey, Mr. Deed is better than this movie, and it's better than Reign of Fire.
Rounding out the top 10 had The Crocodile Hunter, Collision Course, Lilo and Stitch, Like Mike, Minority Report, and The Bourne Identity.
I mean, some of those movies are really good. You guess which ones.
So, Julio, you're having a hard time here really deciding if this is the bottom of the barrel. I guess just more blunt and directly. Do you think this is a good movie?
Perhaps I should read you the last note I have when it came to this movie.
Let's go.
So this is how it feels when a filmmaker doesn't think much of his audience. And I think that is kind of unfair to Rick Rosenthal. After this conversation, I'm a little more... When I wrote that, I didn't know that it was directed by the same guy that did Halloween 2. I just figured they grabbed like some hack that was like, sure, I'll make a quick buck by just making, a Halloween movie, and I don't care, I'll just like whatever, right? Obviously, it seems like the situation might have been a little more complicated than that, but the point remains. I feel like there is not care in the way that this movie was put together. I feel like I could probably say the same about Halloween 5 and probably maybe Halloween 6.
I was going to say you'd be safe there in that territory.
Well, yeah, but there's also like I feel
there's some big swings taken in those movies.
Yes, and I may be at this point, because we've gone through so much with him. Like I might be idealizing Loomis, just how much the doc cared, right? And I mean, I know at some point we talked about it when we were doing Haddonfield Nights. It was like, was it just a paycheck and he was just happy to have the paycheck, or was he like fully invested in the Halloween story? And perhaps we'll never know, but I don't feel like anybody's invested in anything in this movie, in Resurrection. Like not a single person behind the camera or in front of the camera, and not even Busta Rhymes. I think Busta Rhymes is there to like have fun, but it just feels like they're just there to like put out a product that they know is going to make money because it has a Halloween name attached to it. And I don't feel like anybody's trying, right? And it just translates to what I was saying before, like about the visual aspect of it. And, you can also say that in a way it maybe translates to the performances and the script and all that. It's just, I used the word before, and I think I'll say it again. It's like the most inconsequential Halloween entry, perhaps. And look, we haven't even talked about the biggest thing that happens in the movie, which is that they kill Laurie Strode.
That is what I was going to use as like our cliffhanger or teaser to check out the warm up on our YouTube, because that's what we're going to be focusing on.
Okay. Well, there you go.
I'll see you in hell.
This really is like you put a frozen pizza in the oven for an hour and a half and you open the oven and nothing's different. It's not like it even thawed. It's just exactly like what it was to begin with. So I guess this always comes around every once in a while. I've tried to ask this question more sparingly to have its weight hold. Are you watching this or No Holds Barred? Which one are you watching first?
Oh, no, that's not. I'm watching this. I mean, it's shorter. And I can
what I'm taking away what I'm taking away from this isn't a movie that you were like mad when it was over. You were just kind of like, what the fuck was that?
I was bored, which was kind of, it felt long, man. It's like 90 minutes, right? It's a short one. And
I think it's like the credits hit an hour 20.
Yeah. It shouldn't feel as long as it does. And it's just because there's so much blah, nothing's happening. But at the same time, it's just, there's no Dookie. There's no No Holds Barred is a chore, man.
Well, truthfully, all I ask at this point, Julio, is that you put together your franchise ranking on Letterboxd.
Okay, I guess I have to, and then I'm gonna have to decide. Okay, do I rate this at the bottom because it's just the filmmaking maybe at its worst or close to bottom, or do I put it above Halloween Ends and Halloween Kills because it didn't make me as angry?
Okay, you can't put it above Kills because Kills has Judy Greer.
Yes, but and actually, No, that's the one where she has a stupid subplot at the hospital. No, 2018 has the best Judy Greer.
Kills is fantastic in that. Yeah,
Kills has Evil Dies Tonight. It has the slogan.
Kills has the subplot where the town is hunting the troll they saw in the tree, and they have to. Yeah,
Evil Dies Tonight as a meme is something to be treasured, I guess. So
it is like the gift that keeps giving. On Thanksgiving, the pumpkin pies tonight, and on Christmas, Santa flies tonight. Like that shit is just fantastic. Someone posted when the Super Bowl, because fuck the Chiefs, there was a at the Chiefs, Evil Dies Tonight, like the whole group like chanting it.
All right, I will work. I'll give this some serious thought, and I will post my list on Letterboxd. So
possibly the most surprising part of this for me now is this is still not an F. It's just a D minus, teetering on an F, but it's just too weird for me to call it a failure. It's just a strange movie, and there's so much unrealized potential they had in this. One of the funniest things about this movie is like that everyone seems to forget was like one of the big selling points for the DVD was like you could see the kills from the perspective of the cameras, like and there was like this at one point it was advertised that there was going to be like a DVD version of it that never came to fruition, but you could watch the entire movie and choose which camera you wanted to watch while the movie was going on. That would take way too much time and resources. I understand why they never did it, but there's ideas, the germ of the idea. There's some interesting stuff there. And then the whole backstory and the whole just completely baffling nature of the Busta Rhymes, the Freddy character, and how everything plays out. This movie sucks. It's a 1-star movie. It's a D minus. It's the worst Halloween film. But, if it's on, I'll watch it till the next commercial break.
It's like you've been waiting the entire conversation to finally say it. It's the worst.
It is.
I probably should give it 1 star. I'm honestly between 1 and 1.5 because
my God.
because for everything bad I've said about it, and I knew this was going to happen. I almost wish that I hadn't been spoiled about this, but the fact that Jamie Lee Curtis kisses Michael before he kills him, that is insane, and yet it sets you up for another letdown because the movie never reaches that level of weirdness again. That's it. That's the end of it, right? Like she kisses him, then she dies, and then it's just whatever bullshit happens after. So I wish I could remember, and I'm sure I have them on my Letterboxd, but how I rated the other ones. Halloween 2 is probably like 0.5 star, and
it has been saying the whole time. You're referring to Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, right?
Yes. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Rob Zombie's Halloween 2.
It's just a wholly unpleasant experience. That's the whole thing. Just like you said a second ago, you can laugh at this. It's boring and stupid, but you can still find yourself chortling at the absurdity of it all. That Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, man, is just it's
nasty.
It is. You feel like you need a shower when it's over. It's just like, God, what the fuck?
And Rob Zombie nods in agreement. It's like, yes.
This dreads. Yeah, Rob Zombie is listening to this right now. What's the problem?
1.5, because really the concept, even as much as they botched it, the idea of a reality show set up at the Michael Myers house. I mean, there is something, and there is that scene where that girl gets killed and everybody is cheering. And when it's Scream 2, it was before this one, right?
Oh yeah, Scream 2 is 1997.
Oh my God. Yeah, way before. Okay, so fuck, it doesn't even get to claim that they got there first.
No, 9/11 was like the cold reset on everything. They're like, all right, everything is up for grabs again. Go for it.
All right, 1.5 for me. And what is it, D minus? Is that what you said, Alex?
D minus, yes, sir.
All right. Do not recommend Halloween Resurrection. Ben, let's see what you gave it on Letterboxd. Do you have anybody on Letterboxd that gives it a positive?
I'm actually looking it up right now. The Ends is my favorite, like just the fucking wide range of reviews of people I follow. Someone I follow gave it 3 stars. Eddie Straight slapping it with the half. Respect. All right, here's Ben.
Yep.
Yeah, 2.5.
2.5. It says Halloween Resurrection needs to be burnt alive, much as Michael is. An awful film for a fucking teeny bopper crowd, which thinks killing off JLC in the first act is enough to win it plaudits. It's a bad film. God help me, I can't help but love Busta Rhymes as Michael Myers. So you get like the 2.5 are just for Busta Rhymes? Is that what he's saying?
I guess so. Skedaddle.
All right. Well, mystery solved. Ben doesn't like it, but it doesn't sound like he hates it. Or rather, it doesn't sound like it's the worst for him.
You got it. Thank you, Deckard. You saved my life.
All right, Julio. Well, that was Halloween Resurrection. What is on deck?
Coming up next, so we're pushing everything one slot forward. So whereas like before we were gonna close the month with Green Room, now we're closing the month with Halloween happening. It just means that it's happening, now at the beginning of next month. So Green Room, Alex, the answer is Green Room. It's the Captain Picard as a Nazi movie. It's a hell of a pitch.
Yikes.
I wonder if that's how they got it financed. I was like, Patrick Stewart, what if he hated minorities?
A movie that I don't remember why I have familiarity with it. So I've never seen it. But when I looked it up, I was like, oh, yeah, I know this movie. I don't know why, but we'll find out soon.
Yeah, that's being demanded by patron John Amenta. So, and there's the Star Trek connection because, we did the J.J. Abrams Star Trek with John a couple years ago. And Chekhov is in this movie. He's one of the main characters.
Anton Yelkin. And then on the Patreon feed, as you listen to this, it's already out there. Our bonus episode for February is on the movie Dinner in America, starring America's sweetheart, Kyle Goldner. A hell of a movie.
Yeah, it led to a very interesting conversation, and it led to me questioning how punk rock I really am. if I am any sort of punk rock at all. So you can check that out. That was demanded by patron Jamie Russell. Our QVR is a dual QVR. It's the movie Baby Teeth. That's demanded by the man who demanded Halloween Resurrection. Hopefully that one is a little better. Ben Murray giving us Baby Teeth for a video review. And then we have Contrarians After Hours. Alex, what are you bringing to Contrarians After Hours this time?
Not much been going on, as we talked about battling illness recently. So there is a new television series on Vice that led me to revisit a documentary that's about, 10 or 15 years old, called Once I Was a Champion. It's a documentary on the life and times of the late Evan Tanner, who was a MMA fighter, and I think he would view himself as a philosopher. But a revisit of that documentary and just discussion of that, kind of the danger of an unbalanced account of someone's life, I guess is the way I would describe it. So that's what I'm going to be talking about.
It sounds dark.
Well, the Evan Tanner story is dark as shit. In one of the first episodes of Tough 20s, Steve made a Evan Tanner joke that me and Joe both almost, were on the brink of booing him over. So.
All right. Well, mine is, I guess, slightly more uplifting in the sense that, we're about a week from the Oscars as we record this. I'm still catching up on all the nominees. So I'm going to tell you about 2 of the Best Picture nominees. Anora, directed by Sean Baker, who we know on our Patreon feed mainly as the guy who directed Takeout, a movie we both really liked. And so now, Alex, he's made it to the top. He's nominated for Best Director, Best Picture, Best Original Screenplay, and Best Lead Actress, and Best Supporting Actor, I think. I literally finished watching it right before we jumped on this recording, so I'm going to tell you about that. And then Conclave, that's another Best Picture nominee that also has a whole bunch of nominations. That's Ray Fiennes. Ray Fiennes must find a new pope. That's the pitch of the movie. So both very different movies, both Best Picture nominees. I will tell you about them. I think that you might be interested in watching at least one of them. So Anora, Conclave, and a very dark documentary about the life of, what's his name? Jeremy?
Evan Tanner. Lonnie Donegan.
The life of Evan Tanner. That's on the After Hours. Any of this sounds interesting, go check our Patreon, patreon.com/Contrarian Prime. And now, Alex, let's get out of here.
Let's do. Welcome to our end credits.
Or as we usually call them, our perennial plugs.
We start off by giving thanks to the Festive Years who provide our opening and closing tracks. They kick us off with Last Stand and take us home with Summer of 99. Be sure to head over to thefestiveyears.com for any and all Festive Years needs.
Our friend and fellow podcaster Hans Rothgieser is the man behind our logo and all the art you see related to our show. Reach out to him and let him know how much you like that little tomato. His email address is mildemonios@hotmail.com and his website is mildemonios.pe. That's MILDEMONIOS. Hans, thank you for all your support.
For those interested in the regularly absurd world of professional wrestling, Joe and the boys over at latenightgrin.com have you covered. Tell them the Contrarians sent you.
And we like to close with special thanks to our social media team of Zoe Perez and Corey Ari. Each of the social media accounts we mentioned in the introduction look as good as they do because of their work.
So that'll do it for this episode of The Contrarians, where we're right and you're wrong, and we will catch you next time.
Just for old time's sake, I really don't care who you're seeing or how much money you make to get a room.